As the prophet of esports, I rely on trustworthy and meaningful data every day. Data from our research partner YouGov offers the most complete view of esports fans and gamers in the world, providing context to who they are, what they think, the brands they buy, and things they do. YouGov's connected insights and research services inform strategy at every level. If you're a team, a brand, agency, or rights holder, you should be talking with YouGov. Their partners measure and maximize ROI and are telling compelling stories with data. Visit yougov.com/gaming-esports to learn more. We can stay on the topic of game developers, or we can move to FaZe and Optic. What do you guys want to talk? You guys want to talk about
Game
FaZe
developers.
and Optic? Okay, let's do one more game developers, but then you got Jeff. You got to chime in on this because the story here is interesting.
I'll juice the whole thing. Don't worry.
So the headline here: Seattle area video game company ProbablyMonsters raises $200 million to build studios. Founded in 2016 by ex-Bungie CEO Harold Ryan, ProbablyMonsters, they say, is a collective that bills itself as building a family of sustainable game studios through a people-first culture. Interesting tagline in the current environment. And what's interesting is supposedly, according to this article, and I gave it a bit of thought and I looked, and I think it is true, that $200 million is the largest amount of funding that any video game company has ever raised in a Series A. So this is the largest Series A ever in video game company history. $200 million to go build sustainable game studios through a people-first culture. Have we hit max frothiness on the game studio venture front, or does anyone see this as like we're just getting started here?
Not max frothy at all. Can I jump on this?
Yeah.
So we've seen these publishers. Look at what's happened in this space, right? Like pretty much everyone who is worth buying has been bought now, right? Like there's only a few independent publishers left, right? And we've recognized that these games are really value. They're not just games, they're media and brand properties that have massive residual value, right? So if you want to be owning, if you want to be owning or taking an active stake in these increasingly valuable developer and publisher assets, how can you do it, right? There's very few left to buy, or you can be seeding new high profile collectives of studios. And yeah, you're going to get, takes a while to have, your seeds grow, but you're getting it for pennies on the dollar, right? And I think a lot of this has to do with the pedigree. This is the ex-Bungie CEO. Bungie is kind of a legendary name in the gaming community. I don't think you would see a $200 million raise for just like so-and-so says they're doing a people-first game studio. But I think it's reflective of the fact that when there is proven talent attached to new studio businesses, and a dearth of independent studios to be acquired. And by the way, a dearth of IP creation, as we've talked about, occurring in major studios, it makes sense that dollars are going here. $200 million is a massive amount of money. I suspect there's more going on here than they're announcing. But I don't think this is an indication of frothiness in the market. It's an indication of capital building more of these things because it turns out they're valuable when they hit.
Does the language around some of this throw anyone off, though? Like they make a point to say, and I'm saying this because Chris made this comment, probably Venn-like, right? And we all know what has happened to Venn. They raised massive amounts of money and they went to zero.
I'm so sad I wasn't around to discuss that, by the way. I'm so sad
it was a lot of me saying I was right, so you didn't miss much.
Isn't that what it always is? Anyway.
But I'll just
Did you
quote
want
directly.
to vent about it, Lindsay?
Oh.
I want to dignify that, but yeah.
I'll quote directly from the article here. It says Ryan's aim with ProbablyMonsters, beyond simply creating high-budget original IP, is to create a culture of respect in the overall company. Like, does anyone think this is not a little bit of pandering to the current environment?
Why wouldn't you just do it? Like that's my thing. Like why wouldn't you just make the games and then have your employees say, "Oh, this is also an awesome place to work."
You would think.
throwing out these like fancy little word salads really does nothing for me. It's like, just do the thing.
Does it not make you more afraid though, Lindsay? Right, to sort of Chris's point that it shows like maybe they're not for real when they have to be this explicit about things. Like,
right, they're like, we're totally not gonna mess up in the way that everyone else has. Haha.
We're gonna be so respectful.
Trust us, we're different.
It's like the Subway commercials that are like, our tuna is literally made out of tuna now.
It's like, what do you mean, man?
Like, what was it made out of prior?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. The whole thing kind of sat wrong with me, and it felt. I think Chris nailed it. It feels a little Venn-like. I'm not saying that's how this one's going to end up. 200 million's a lot of money to burn through. I think if anyone can do it, it's a game development
but
company.
guys, this is totally different. This is a guy who's helmed one of the most marquee, influential game studios of all time. He has $200 million to do original IP. I really think we're like, what are you gonna like?
Yeah,
what's
no original IP in gaming has ever failed before.
Yeah, but there's, well, yes, but I mean, and it's true that they could make a terrible game, but
I guess that's not the point.
You're writing this one off.
It's still a
way
bet you could make. No one's right. It could fail, but that doesn't mean that the mission was a failure. Like,
and what
do
do you
games is hard.
like, what do you expect people to be announcing? This is hey, well, we really think the CEO of Bungie could build another Bungie, so we gave him a lot of money. I mean, that's sort of what I think an element of what's going on here. But of course they want to tell a story. And probably, I think this guy probably does really want to catalyze change. He's been around publishers for a while. You know,
I think like, even given their track record, like you mentioned Bungie, you know, even Destiny's marketing back in the day was like, we're going to change the world. This game is going to change how you play games. The universe will not be the same after. I'm like, I'm tired of this bullshit, man. Just give me the thing.
You should do voiceovers.
Bungie used to have, like, I still remember their marketing campaign for Halo 2 or something, which was like, Halo 2 is basically Halo 1 in a hospital zone, going 140 miles an hour, chased by ninjas.
I kind of disagree, because that was the early 2000s overall. But I think like Destiny is what I was talking about, right? Like their whole like.
I just want to get back to the numbers though here, right? And because I'm not blaming a company for taking $200 million from investors if it's being handed to them, right? Like, you'd be stupid not to. The problem I have with this is it really wise for investors to be doing a $200 million Series A, right? Series A means the company's still pretty new. They haven't proven out that much. Like, is it more prudent to do a $50 million Series A, see how it goes, see how, the company manages it, and go from there, and then raise another 200 million or 300 million? It feels like they're jumping the gun a bit, and it feels like a bit of exuberance that is not wholly rational. I'm not saying this company shouldn't raise $1 billion and be massively successful. I'm a little worried when investors are throwing that much money that quickly at something that's still unproven.
Okay, new topic. We can't speculate on this anymore.
Chris says, we got tired of Scorsese with The Irishman not paying $200 million for a Halo clone in today's FPS market. Chris, we don't know what kind of game they're going to make. I will say that in the article, it mentions a couple of things. It mentions their first project. Supposedly, they're maintaining 3 internal development studios. One is a multiplayer game that's going to be published by Sony. It just literally just says multiplayer game, whatever that means. 2, it says a single-player adventure-driven game that will evolve with and around the player, which I also think is incredibly vague. And the third game that they're working on is a next-gen open-world co-op experience that will bring players together.
Yeah, that's
what do you make of
means.
the fact, Paul, or anyone? What do you make of the fact that they're doing 3 different I mean, this is why they've raised the 200 million. Like, normally when you see this, it's, hey, we're raising money, we're going to launch one game. This is like, we're building out a whole organization. We're building three studios is a lot. Like, you
But
know, like
isn't-
I don't even know. You know, there are certain like Take-Two has like 3 studios.
Okay,
Like,
okay, but there is
Three
there is
different
more. Hold on.
versions of Halo.
Yeah,
Got it.
Halo in space, Halo underground, and Halo underwater. Like, no, but like seriously, like, isn't that part of the appeal of this though? Because we recognize that IP is risky and games are hit driven, right? You have this guy. Obviously, this is somebody who has experience running a large scale organization, right? Would you rather bet on him making one thing and having that thing work and be a major hit, or him taking 3 bets, all of which are somewhat differentiating each other, and really for the business to be worth it, only one of them has to pan out? I mean, I'm just saying, like, a big benefit of large publishers is diversification so they can take risk.
No,
Isn't there
100%.
some value to diversification at an earlier stage too?
Yeah,
I will
think
sort of buy that argument.
yeah, 100%. I think that's a very valid point.
That's right. You don't just buy it, Jeff. You drink it.
The investor
this
hat
juice
in
is
me
fresh
is
squeezed.
terrified that you all like. The investor in me is terrified that you all agree with that. Like,
No, I'm saying
lack of focus is really good.
No, I'm
guys.
saying
We
it
wanna-
makes
I
sense.
don't
We want to
necessarily think it's
spread it
lack of
out.
No, I'm
I
saying
don't think it's lack of focus. I think it's like
You
you're
know?
scaling resources across the public. Like nobody
Right.
says like, "Hey, Take-Two's not focused because they have Rockstar."
Different. They're
and
not
they
a
have
startup.
2K.
But yeah,
Not
see,
a
there are
startup.
3
True,
things, right?
but if you're sorry, if
No, you're
if
fine.
you were looking at this as this guy whatever the guy's Harold or whatever, he is used to running a scaled organization and he's bringing in people that have already done this. It's not like they're trying to build like the Theranos device that doesn't exist, right? They're building games, so it's
I
not
get
something
it,
that's like
but
never
he's
been
still
done
doing
before.
things that the CEO of Take-Two is not doing, right? He spent a lot of time raising this money. So all of a sudden, again, his environment's different from an established business. And this is why you encourage startups to be very focused, because your energy is drawn in 10 different places. He still has to build an HR department here, right? Like that doesn't just exist.
The real downside to a shotgun approach, right? Say you take the shotgun approach and you build 3 IPs out. What if all of them suck? That's a very real possibility.
Well, then
None of
you're
them take
screwed
off. And
regardless.
then you're just
That's
screwed.
the-
That's what I mean. Like, sure,
What's your
one of
point?
them might take off, like a split gate, right? Really little money investment initially, blew up, and it works out. Maybe, but a split gate is a split gate. That happens 20 years. Like, it's tough. So, yeah, you can take that shotgun approach, but it's very, very volatile.
I
Look.
guess to have the
Yeah.
before Paul can have the last word. Normally, I don't usually agree with William. I like to play devil's advocate, but I think if I'm an investor, I sort of like this conglomerate where it's like you're getting the benefits of scale and you're getting a couple of different bites at the apple. I'd be more bullish on this than if they raised 50 million for one game. But
There you go, Jeff.
But
I've
we'll see.
converted you. I've converted you to my like terribly
the
undisciplined-
smart investors may have been fine with the 3 games, but would have said, "We'll give you 50 million, prove that you can build out the teams, the systems, the infrastructure to support 3 development studios and 3 games in development, and then we'll write you a $200 million check." Like, to me, that's the way that these things. It screams to me of sort of investors that maybe are a little new to this, even though that's a big check. Maybe just caught up in the excitement of it all. I don't know. But I do hope they succeed. Don't get me wrong. I do hope these games are good, and I suspect out of the 3 there will be one that is good. I don't think they will all be. They will all be just different versions of
kind of
Halo.
proved my point there, Paul. You kind of proved my point. Like, anyway.